Hey guys, welcome back to the Babbling Pastor Podcast. Another episode brought to you by our sponsors. No one's our sponsor. So, this episode sponsored by.
Brought to you by Good Ranchers.
No, it's not. No. Here's the thing. Let's just talk about that for a second. Not that I am opposed, because there are a few people that I'm kind of emailing back and forth about just different things to mention in videos, like all this. But all that to say this, I'm very picky about my food. So even if Good Ranchers are like, we're going to send you some steaks, I'm not eating them. So I can't tell, like I'd have to give them to somebody that would, like my father-in-law, and be like, hey, are these good? So it's not, I mean, even if Good Ranchers pays really well, no point in reaching out, my friends. Like none. The best one, look, if you guys can hear the squeaky chair, if a chair company would like to reach out, that I could do that. But
nice.
Yeah, not a food company. But anyway,
a video game chair company.
Oh
nice.
Man, could you like a headrest? Because right now I got one of those.
Reclining. Yeah.
That's what I don't know if I got room under this desk for reclining, but I don't know. Let's speak it into existence and whatnot, right? That's what Ken Nicole says. So, we are going to continue our series on reacting to videos. This next one that I'm going to be pulling up is one that I actually did I don't even want to say I did a short reel. I literally added like a meme to the beginning of it and then let the whole thing play because, I mean, there's a lot to this. So let's go over here. In a world in which our children are definitely going to be introduced to sort of adverse, different sort of sexual orientations and presentations, I found this. This came up on my, I don't know if it was over on Twitter or on Instagram, but somewhere I saw it, and I thought, man, this is very interesting, and I thought this was a good example. But let's watch it, and then we'll talk about it.
I knew one day we were going to have this conversation. There are people in this world who are lost, okay? They don't know the Lord, okay? They're just lost souls, okay? We got to pray for them. So there will be guys acting like girls or wanting to be girls, and there will be girls acting like guys and wanting to be guys, okay? There are some guys that they really think they're a girl, and there are some girls that think they're a guy. They're not happy with the gender they are. And a gender means male or female. You're a male, right? And I'm a female. But we don't do that. Okay?
Okay.
We don't dress up like other genders. We don't do that type of stuff. Okay?
Okay.
We gonna always be ourselves. You understand me?
Yes, ma'am.
You want to wear heels like that, man? And put a wig on?
No.
Hey, girl. That's what you want?
No. And I don't want to wear a purse either. I want to be the regular way I am and still get even haircuts and just be a boy myself.
You're a boy. That's how God made you. You understand me?
Yes.
You don't change what God created you to be. Do you understand me?
Yes, ma'am.
God is not okay with that. God said that there is man and there is woman. He didn't say that men can turn into women and women can turn into men. That's not what it is, okay?
Okay.
All right.
All right, so there is that. Like I said, I saw that and I thought, that. And I don't even need to change it. I just added like a little meme at the beginning of it. I think it was the Jacksepticeye, this is the greatest thing I have ever seen, and then just posted that and let it play through. I think the interesting thing, I'll have to get your take on it here in a minute. This isn't really even more of a reaction thing than really just commenting on the fact that like this will 100% happen. Like if you're a parent, this conversation will inevitably come up. For a variety of different reasons, whether your kid goes to public school and they interact with it in that environment, whether you're driving down the road and there is a rainbow flag, whether you're watching a television show and something like that. My point being, like if you're a parent, there's only so much shielding one can do before there's things that just come up in the world that you have to have a conversation about and really have to talk about. And I saw this and I thought, man, this is like, I think this was a good approach to having a moment to where this lady could teach her son, like, hey, like this is what you saw. Because I don't know if it said at the beginning. I definitely said it in the caption of the original post, was that he went to the barbershop to get his hair cut. He saw a man there that had like nails on and lipstick and a wig. And he'd asked his mom, hey, why is that man dressed like a woman? And then that's what made this conversation sort of take place. And so inevitably, like I said, this is going to come up. And then I think how you have this conversation, as with everything we do with our kids, it teaches them how to interact with topics, right? When they watch mom and dad in a marriage, you're setting up your kids for what marriage should look like, or at least their baseline for how people should love each other, disagree with one another, make decisions. Like all of these things are things they're picking up as they watch you. And it's the same thing like with this conversation, I think. And I mean, I'm sure I'll have more to say after you kind of make your comment on it, but I thought the reason I wanted to share it initially online, the reason I thought it would be a good thing to react to here is because it's inevitable it's going to happen. I think she did a really good job of addressing it in the moment as best she could. And it really plants the seed further for if there are more discussions to be had, he knows where, his mom stands on it and what she's already told him.
So a few comments, I think, about the actual video itself, or the incident in the video. I think the number one, the woman had an answer. That's a big deal, because there's so many of the things in our culture that frankly, up until just recently, a lot of parents would say, I mean, I know this is wrong, but let me call so-and-so, you know what I mean? Instead of having thought through it and have a thoughtful answer and know what the scriptures say, know what their worldview is, know why they believe what they believe. She had scriptures pasted on the screen in the captions. So like, I think that number one, that's a big deal as a parent. There are specific things in our culture right now that Satan is doing his work with. Off the top of my head, the biggest ones that are across the culture, I think would probably be abortion, transgenderism, or gender identity in general, LGBTQ, racism stuff. There's several things like that I think parents need to think through, need to be familiar with the opposition, familiar with the other worldviews enough. You don't have to be an expert, but you need to be familiar enough that you can have that conversation with your children. Secondly, I love that she was a mother in that conversation and not like his pal, right? Who's just discussing it as if it's a discussion to be had. She just told him truth. And she even said things like, we don't do that, right? Which I think is really great. Like she acted as the authority in the conversation and telling him this is, we don't do that. And this is why God's not okay with that. This isn't how he made it, So I think that she did a good job with that, because a lot of times we, as parents, tend to want to have these as conversations to be had. Like, let's think through it together. And I mean, there's places for that kind of stuff, but especially like how young that guy was. I mean, you just tell him the truth, and maybe when they're like teenagers, that changes a little bits at a time as they're growing. But I think it was also cool that she did it on the street. It was a public thing. I don't think that our worldview is something that we need to be ashamed of. I think that if it's true, then it's okay to say it. Now, I think that there's something to be said also that she didn't necessarily do it right in the barber shop where the thing happened, right? And that's also okay, right? This is going to be kind of situational. You don't want to you don't want to seemingly attack the person right there when you're explaining this, when you're explaining the wrong-headedness and the lostness that's behind their decisions or whatever, their lifestyle. But I do enjoy that she didn't wait around until she was home in a corner somewhere, but she just had the conversation because it was an important conversation. Lastly, about her particular response. I think that it was good and right and true. She identified it with lostness. There are people who are lost in this world. They don't know the Lord. And that is the bottom line. She didn't differentiate that sin from any other sin in that sense, right? Which we tend to do at times. But it's not different, Andy Stanley. It's the same as any other sin, right? So she attributed the situation that some people do this, whether it's cross-dressing or transgenderism or whatever. People do this at times, and it is against what God has. It's against the created order, and it is just sin. So yeah, I don't know. I thought it was like, good work, Mom.
Yeah, well, and that was basically every comment on Instagram was "Good job, Mama," because it was one of the things that stuck out, and that everybody seemed to really latch onto was what you had said there, where she had the opportunity to set a standard in which it was, we are going to make fun of or dehumanize or, just really go after this person. And she doesn't do that. Now, I think I did go look through her at least her Instagram profile. This particular video isn't actually on her Instagram, even though it had the tag for her Instagram. It was only on her TikTok. But what I did see was that she has a post on there, and to get around about why I think she approaches the way she did. She has a post on there where she kind of gives her testimony, like where she was, what she did, how she came to Christ, how she came to Christ initially just because she wanted out of situations, and then she went right into those situations, and then there's a lot to her story of homelessness and drug abuse and a bunch of other things. I say that to say this: I think that always, everybody I've ever interacted with, when you know your own depravity, you approach other people's depravity differently, right? When you understand that you are just in need of God's grace as every other human being on this planet, you approach those people differently than if you think you're better than them or if you think there's some sort of righteousness in yourself. And so I think that's where that approach comes from. This real idea of, when I'm going to teach my kids that there are people that don't know Christ, my story is included in that. And there's this reality of like making sure that there's this understanding, like she did with this kid, of like, hey, they're lost, they don't know the Lord. And it sets up a couple things. Like, when you know the Lord, there is a different way you act than when you don't know the Lord. And obviously she doesn't have to go through the whole story with her son, because her son, according to this TikTok I watched, like, he was there for a lot of this process of her sort of changing. So he's seen this. But I think that's also where like our approach and our teaching really comes in. And I can't emphasize that enough. The longer I've been in church, the longer I've lived life, the longer I've had kids, the longer I've heard other people's testimonies, all of those things have made it very apparent that especially when talking to children of Christian parents, where one of them was aware of the parents' lifestyle before they got saved and the other one was born on the other side of that salvation. Like, I can't emphasize enough how important it is for us as Christian parents to tell our children, I wasn't always like this. You have a dad or a mom that behaves this way because of Jesus, not because I just felt like this was a good way to do it. Because I've seen a lot of parents that, or a lot of kids rather, of Christian parents, that the ones that saw the transformation of their parents from death to life understand the power of Christ just from observation, versus the ones that didn't. And they're like, oh, this is just like, you just want to be this way, or you're just a goody two shoes. And it's like, you weren't here before. You weren't here before. And I think one of the reasons that this, again, it's a little kid, so he's probably just going to listen to his mom, whatever she says. But I think living with her also gives her words a lot of viability for him. This is Mom. Yeah. I'm going to listen to her. She's been here. She's taking care of me. I've seen what she's like, her life. And I think that plays a huge part in it too, is, again, like you said, I'm not your buddy. I'm just telling you, this is the truth. And this is why I know this is the truth, because I've already lived through this. And then setting that bar of like, I'm just in need of this love of Christ as this person, so I'm going to treat them that way. And I think that's why the genuineness really comes through on that video of just like, yes, this is wrong. Yes, this is why. And yes, this is how we deal with it. And it wasn't, and her initial reaction was, we pray for them. This is what we're going to do. We're going to pray for him. Because again, I think, and I'll sort of end with this comment. I think the reason that she approaches it that way is because, again, just looking at her page and watching the video of her testimony, is that she knows that sometimes that's the only way somebody's going to be reached, is God's going to be the one that's going to have to do it. And so we're going to pray for them, that God does that he reaches them, whether that be through us or through somebody else. But ultimately, we're giving it up to God, that he's going to do the work, not us. So
yeah, I think a couple of things. One, I love that that's where she landed. Also, that this is so until a youngster, especially, right? They don't even know how to use any words in public that like. There are times that you're like, okay, you're not allowed to say this word, and it's not even because it's a bad word, it's because you're still young and dumb and you don't know how to use it, right? So you're going to say it in a wrong time, and it will be rude then or whatever, right? So with children being like that, right? They're just unlearned. They're ignorant of how to do certain things yet. So it's going to be a long time before that youngster is able to intellectually engage or lovingly engage in a conversation with the person who's struggling with that in the moment, right? So until then, it's so appropriate that he knows, okay, my job is to pray for them. Like, that is huge. That's a huge deal. I think too, Deuteronomy 6, famously, the hero Israel, Yahweh is our God, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh, your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And then it says, these words which I'm commanding you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your sons, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. All of those things combined into the short version of, you shall teach them diligently to your sons, and shall speak of them all the time. Right. And I think that one of the things that's really important for us as parents to learn ourselves is that they're always learning, that every moment is a teaching moment, frankly, whether you like it or not. That's why, like, if you say certain things and then your kid goes to a public place or church and they say the same thing and you're like, I don't know where they learned that, like they're always learning, whether you like it or not. Right. And every moment is a teaching moment. And so I would encourage parents even to not even wait until that particular moment happens in a barbershop somewhere, to have these conversations with your children. And not that she necessarily did anything wrong there. I don't know. I mean, he was pretty young, but when look for opportunities, I guess is what I'm saying. Look for opportunities at home or anywhere. That you can bring these kinds of things up. Watch, like, our sons are older now, 15 and 13, but they're at an age where we will watch certain things and talk about the logic behind it or the strategies that are happening. We did that with the debate last night, which was an hour and a half I'll never get back. And so one of the things that I said to the boys last night was, okay, so pay attention. How often is a particular question asked to either candidate, and how often do they actually answer that question? Both of them are going to not do that, right? Because it's a strategy. And so they're learning that's a teaching moment. That's just what I'm trying to say. We have to look for and even create, as parents, teaching moments when it comes to these cultural issues. And I'm convinced there will be, so speaking to this particular cultural thing that was addressed here, there will be people who are children who grow up and legitimately have gender dysphoria, where there's a struggle there. There is legitimately a mental struggle, right? And it takes talking through it and counseling things and whatever else, right? But the vast majority of this whole phenomena is social. The vast majority of kids who are identifying as this and identifying as that, it's social pressure. It's acceptance. It's this group will accept me no matter what. And so it has nothing to do with gender dysphoria, a lot of it. And so I'm thoroughly convinced that if we teach our children at a young age, specifically, this is one of the things you'll run into in the world. This is one of the differences between God's people and the world. This is something that you might see out here, this and that and the other thing. And we explain these things to them. Is it going to be perfect 100% every time? No, right? But you are doing your job then as a parent. You're preparing them for what they're going to encounter, and the chances go up that when they encounter it, they're not going to necessarily be the one that says, okay, I'll be a girl. Right. So I think that every moment is a teaching moment for a parent. And we have to understand that and know going in that this is what you sign up for. This is what it means to be a parent, is Deuteronomy 6. Right. That's what we have to do at all times. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, because oftentimes, especially early on as a parent, I was like, all right, well, like, I don't know why this was in my head, but it was of like, oh, I have to wait for it to come up rather than like looking for the moment to do it. Obviously, second time around, learned a lot. So, changed the tactic a bit. But I think that's where I think we miss it sometimes. Like you said, we just don't actively look for ways to teach them, because we're not really thinking that, oh, every moment is a teachable moment. Like every way, I don't think any parent realizes that until, like you said, like your kid says something that you said or reacts in a way that you react, and you're like, oh no, this is not. I remember when Haley, when she was little, reacted like very stressful to a situation, and I was like, oh, I taught her to do it that way, unintentionally. And so I think that's super important, us realizing that, being mature enough to look for those, prioritizing that, all of those things I think are incredibly important. So hopefully, guys, you like that. Like I said, hopefully that was encouraging more than anything to you. And I thought, again, it was just a really good discussion point to bring out, like, how should we do this? What should that look like? I think this was a great model of that. So if you like it, go ahead. You can join in the discussion below in the comments, or head over to Instagram and continue the conversation over there with a lot of other people that have already really, I think, weighed in pretty well on it. So like the video, subscribe if you're not. If you dislike this video, what kind of person are you? Is my point. Like, I don't know. Are you just not a joyful one? Or do you just not have joy? Anyway, we'll talk to you next time. See you later.
Michael, no one dislikes this video. Come on.
Okay. All right. That's true.
You're making things up.
I'm going to be looking at the analytics like super close. We'll talk to you later. Bye.